The Galactic Overlords ruled the cosmos with an iron grip, their vast empire stretching across countless star systems. These beings, towering figures of power and technology, had long declared themselves the apex of existence. Their confidence was palpable, fueled by centuries of subjugation over lesser races. Through fear and dominance, they maintained control, extinguishing any flicker of rebellion before it could ignite. The Overlords had a reputation for swift and merciless punishment, instilling terror in every corner of the galaxy. From the core worlds to the outer reaches, the mere mention of their name struck dread into the hearts of those they oppressed. Their fleets, an awe-inspiring sight, were massive constructs of advanced technology, designed to crush any threat with overwhelming force. Massive ships bristling with weaponry traversed the starry void, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. Each vessel was a testament to their engineering prowess, crafted for the singular purpose of domination. It was said that their flagship, the Imperator, could vaporize entire planets with a single strike, a chilling reminder of their might. The Overlords reveled in their technological superiority, viewing it as a divine right. They believed that no species could hope to rival them, their confidence bordering on hubris. Beneath the facade of power, countless races toiled under the weight of oppression. The Overlords had long enslaved entire civilizations, reducing once great societies to mere resources. The inhabitants of these worlds lived in constant fear, their spirits crushed beneath the Overlords' heel. They were stripped of their rights and identities, forced to serve the whims of their captors. In the eyes of the Overlords, these beings were nothing more than tools, to be used and discarded as needed. This dehumanization was a cornerstone of their empire, ensuring that any thoughts of rebellion were quickly silenced. The Overlords, in their arrogance, dismissed humanity as an insignificant species. They regarded Earth as a quaint, primitive world, devoid of any potential threat. To them, the humans were a mere curiosity, a fleeting blip in the vast tapestry of the universe. Any mention of human prowess was met with ridicule and disdain. How could such a weak species pose any danger to us, they scoffed, oblivious to the brewing storm just beyond their perception. Their lack of foresight would prove to be their greatest folly. As the Overlords tightened their grip, subtle unrest began to bubble beneath the surface. Resistance movements, though small and largely ineffective, began to sprout in the shadows. Disparate groups of oppressed beings attempted to band together, fighting against their oppressors with what little strength they could muster. Each rebellion was quickly crushed, leaving only silence in their wake. However, whispers of a new force began to circulate, a rumor that stirred hope in the hearts of those who had long suffered under the Overlords' tyranny. This force was said to be human, a race that had begun to rise from the ashes of their own struggles. The Galactic Overlords, blinded by their overconfidence, paid little heed to these murmurs. They believed themselves untouchable, their empire unassailable. The distant glimmer of a human dreadnought entering their territory went unnoticed, a harbinger of the chaos to come. They continued their oppressive reign, unaware that the tides of fate were shifting beneath them. In their pursuit of absolute control, they overlooked the strength that lay in unity, the determination of those they had long underestimated. As the rumors of the human warship spread, a palpable tension began to fill the air. The Overlords dismissed these tales as mere fantasies, the ramblings of the desperate. Yet, in the hearts of the oppressed, the possibility of liberation flickered like a dying star, threatening to ignite a cosmic inferno. The Galactic Overlords had sown the seeds of their own destruction, and the galaxy would soon bear witness to the consequences of their arrogance. Their empire, once thought invincible, stood on the precipice of chaos. A reckoning was coming, one that would shake the very foundations of their rule. As the Dreadnought drew closer, the Overlords remained blissfully ignorant, their confidence a double-edged sword that would soon cut them down. The galaxy was shifting, and with it, the balance of power. In the depths of space, humanity's resolve began to crystallize, ready to confront the tyranny that had plagued the cosmos for far too long. Unbeknownst to the Overlords, their time was running out. The rumblings of dissent would soon evolve into a chorus of defiance, and the galaxy would awaken from its long slumber. The human Dreadnought, a symbol of hope and resilience, approached with a determination that would soon challenge the very core of the Overlords' empire. As they continued to bask in their own perceived invincibility, the stage was set for an unprecedented confrontation, one that would reshape the destiny of all beings in the universe. The dawn of a new era was on the horizon, and the Galactic Overlords, in their arrogance, were woefully unprepared for the storm that was about to break. The silence of space was shattered as the human Dreadnought entered the Galactic Overlord's territory, its massive silhouette cutting a stark figure against the backdrop of distant stars. This was not just another ship, it was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. The Dreadnought, a marvel of engineering, had been crafted for war, designed to withstand the most brutal of assaults while delivering destruction of its own. Its hull gleamed with a dark metallic sheen, reinforced with experimental alloys that could withstand the fiercest attacks. Armed to the teeth with advanced weaponry, it was poised to challenge the Overlord's supremacy. As the Dreadnought approached the outer fringes of the Overlord's domain, its sensors began to detect a swarm of enemy vessels, each one a colossal testament to the Overlord's power. The sight was daunting. A fleet of enormous ships lined up in formation, ready to defend their territory. However, the human crew remained unfazed. They had trained for this moment, prepared to face the overwhelming odds that lay ahead. The atmosphere on board was charged with determination and purpose. Every crew member understood the stakes. They were not merely fighting for survival, but for the very soul of humanity. The Overlords, initially dismissive of this solitary vessel, quickly turned their attention to the approaching Dreadnought as its identity became clear. Panic began to ripple through the ranks of the Overlord fleet. Commanders who once laughed at the idea of human resistance now felt the chill of fear creeping into their hearts. They gathered to assess the threat, their arrogance slowly being chipped away as the enormity of the situation dawned on them. This was no ordinary encounter. They were facing an adversary that had risen from the ashes of their own struggles. Within the Dreadnought, tactical displays lit up with information. The human captain, a seasoned veteran, studied the enemy formations, analyzing their strengths and weaknesses. Every tactical decision was critical. Failure could mean annihilation. He knew the Overlords were formidable foes, but he also understood that their overconfidence could be their downfall. The captain initiated a series of maneuvers designed to outsmart the larger, bulkier ships of the Overlord fleet, using speed and agility as his advantages. As the Dreadnought closed the distance, it unleashed a barrage of weapons, its cannons roaring to life. The initial volley was met with disbelief as the Overlord ships scrambled to respond. Their defensive systems, designed to repel attacks from traditional foes, struggled against the Dreadnought's advanced technology. Energy blasts arched through space, striking enemy vessels with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions erupted as hulls shattered under the relentless assault. The human crew reveled in the victory, their morale soaring with each successful strike against their adversaries. In a desperate bid to retaliate, the Overlords launched their fighters, small but agile craft designed to engage enemy ships in dogfights. However, the Dreadnought's point defense systems whirred to life, intercepting incoming missiles and blaster bolts with ruthless efficiency. The human pilots, equipped with superior training and technology, quickly took control of the situation. They executed tactical maneuvers that caught the Overlord fighters off guard, decimating their numbers with coordinated strikes. As the battle raged on, the Overlords realized that their assumptions about humanity had been gravely mistaken. They had dismissed humans as a backward species. Yet here they were, standing firm against an empire that had crushed countless civilizations. The tide was turning, and the Overlords were beginning to grasp the gravity of their error. Each explosion of their ships underscored the unraveling of their once impenetrable fortress. In the heat of the conflict, a sense of urgency filled the air. The Overlords activated their larger weaponry, attempting to deliver a decisive blow to the human Dreadnought. Massive energy beams charged up, aimed directly at the ship. However, the Dreadnought's advanced shielding absorbed the impact, proving resilient against the overwhelming firepower. The captain seized the opportunity, commanding his crew to execute a counterstrike that would leave the Overlords reeling. With precision and tenacity, the Dreadnought maneuvered closer to the heart of the Overlord fleet. The human crew operated like a well-oiled machine, every action synchronized with the rhythm of battle. They exploited the Overlord's disarray, striking at key vessels and crippling their command structure. Panic spread through the ranks of the Overlord fleet as their ships began to falter, some turning to flee in utter chaos. This was not just a battle, it was a message. The Dreadnought's assault signified a new dawn for humanity. No longer would they be seen as weak or insignificant. As the Overlords scrambled to regroup, the Dreadnought pressed its advantage, driving deep into enemy lines. The resilience of the human spirit manifested in every shot fired, every tactical decision made. The Overlords, once dismissive, were now faced with a force that would not be easily quelled. As the dust settled, the Dreadnought stood resolute, surrounded by the remnants of the Overlord fleet. The fear that had gripped the Overlords morphed into sheer panic as they began to realize that the balance of power was shifting. Their empire, once thought indomitable, now faced an existential threat. The Dreadnought had entered their space, and it was here to stay. Humanity's indomitable spirit, coupled with their unexpected technological prowess, had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Overlords, in their arrogance, had underestimated their opponent, and the consequences would be dire. This battle was merely the beginning. The Dreadnought was a harbinger of a new age, one where humanity would rise and claim its rightful place in the cosmos. The Galactic Overlords, now faced with the reality of their situation, understood that their empire was not as secure as they had once believed. The storm had arrived, and with it came the promise of upheaval. The universe would never forget the day a human Dreadnought dared to challenge the might of the Galactic Overlords. As the dust settled from the catastrophic skirmish, the atmosphere within the ranks of the Galactic Overlords turned from disbelief to chaos. Commanders gathered in their opulent war rooms, their faces contorted with frustration and fear. The Dreadnought, once dismissed as a mere nuisance, had wreaked havoc on their forces, leaving behind a trail of destruction that threatened their very existence. Panic began to ripple through the command structure, eroding the confidence that had once defined their rule. The Overlords had built their empire on the premise of invincibility, but now they were faced with a grim reality. As reports of casualties poured in, the commanding officers exchanged anxious glances, each one aware of the gravity of their situation. "How could this happen?" one commander barked, his voice laced with disbelief. "We are the rulers of the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by a single ship." The others remained silent, their confidence faltering as they grappled with the ramifications of this unexpected defeat. In the heart of their war room, strategies were discussed with increasing urgency. The leaders debated their next steps, with some advocating for an immediate counterattack while others argued for a more cautious approach. "We must regroup," said an older commander, his tone steady amidst the rising panic. "This Dreadnought has proven itself a formidable opponent. Rushing in blindly could lead to further losses." His words fell on deaf ears as younger, more aggressive officers called for an all-out assault, driven by indignation and pride. The Overlords' infighting intensified as factions formed around differing strategies. Some insisted on using their most advanced ships, while others suggested employing biological weapons, confident that fear could turn the tide. The once unified command was fracturing under the weight of their failures, revealing cracks in their carefully constructed hierarchy. The Overlords' arrogance, which had blinded them to the growing threat, now threatened to dismantle the very empire they had built. Outside the war room, chaos reigned in the command centers of the Overlord fleet. Crews scrambled to make sense of the situation, tracking the movements of the human Dreadnought as it continued its relentless advance. The disarray among the Overlords was palpable, a stark contrast to their usual poise. Reports of panic and confusion echoed through the halls, and whispers of betrayal and cowardice circulated among the ranks. Their previous confidence was now a bitter memory, replaced by a visceral fear of the unknown. As the command structure reeled, the Dreadnought pressed its advantage. Its crew, galvanized by their success, operated with a sense of purpose and camaraderie. They were no longer just fighting for survival, they were defenders of humanity, striking a blow against tyranny. The ship's weapons systems remained primed and ready, with each crew member acutely aware of the significance of their mission. They understood that this battle was not just about one ship, it was about liberating countless worlds from the oppressive grip of the Overlords. Meanwhile, the Overlords' attempts to regain control of the narrative were failing. Their propaganda machines, usually efficient at instilling fear, were struggling to spin the truth of their defeat. As news of the human Dreadnought spread, so did the resolve of the oppressed races. Whispers of rebellion began to emerge, inspired by the human victory. The Overlords were losing their grip not only on their fleet but also on the hearts of the beings they had subjugated for so long. The Dreadnought's crew received reports of their impact. Enslaved populations across the galaxy were beginning to rise against their oppressors, fueled by the hope that humanity's strength offered. The tides of change were surging, and the Overlords' arrogance had sown the seeds of their own destruction. The Dreadnought captain knew that this was the moment to rally the galaxy. He ordered broadcasts to be sent out, announcing humanity's intent to challenge the Overlords and liberate the oppressed. "We are coming for you," he declared, his voice resolute, "and we will not stop until every being is free." Back in the Overlord war room, the atmosphere shifted once again. The leaders began to realize that they were not just facing a ship, they were confronting an uprising. The Dreadnought was a beacon of hope, igniting resistance across the galaxy. Fear coursed through the Overlords as they grasped the magnitude of their predicament. They were no longer the feared oppressors, they were being hunted. With every passing moment, the Overlords' grip on their empire weakened. The once invulnerable fleets, once thought to be impenetrable, were now seen as vulnerable to a united front of resistance. The war room erupted in a cacophony of voices, some demanding immediate action while others urged caution. Their unity, previously a source of strength, had become their greatest weakness. The Dreadnought pressed forward, unyielding in its mission. The ship's crew, now seasoned veterans of war, executed each order with precision and coordination. They had tasted victory and would not retreat. The time for reckoning had come, and the Dreadnought's advance was a clear message to the Overlords the age of oppression was drawing to a close. As the Overlords struggled to regroup, the reality of their impending doom settled in. They had underestimated humanity's resolve and resourcefulness. Their empire, once thought eternal, now teetered on the brink of collapse. The Dreadnought was not just a ship, it was a harbinger of change, a symbol of the uprising that would sweep across the galaxy. The Overlords could no longer ignore the whispers of rebellion. They had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished, and the galaxy was poised to erupt. Fear and desperation gripped the Overlords as they faced the consequences of their arrogance. The Dreadnought continued its relentless advance, a reminder that the age of the galactic Overlords was drawing to a close. In the vastness of space, the balance of power was shifting, and humanity was ready to claim its rightful place in the cosmos. The final confrontation was imminent, a culmination of tensions that had simmered for far too long. The human Dreadnought, now a symbol of defiance and strength, sailed toward the heart of the Overlord fleet, ready to deliver a decisive blow. The atmosphere on board was electric, every crew member aware that this battle would determine the fate of not just humanity, but of countless oppressed species across the galaxy. The captain stood resolute, his eyes scanning the tactical displays, calculating their next moves. He had witnessed the Overlords' panic, and now it was time to capitalize on their fear. As the Dreadnought advanced, the Overlords' fleet attempted to regroup. They scrambled their remaining ships, forming a desperate line of defense. Massive vessels lined up, their hulls bristling with weapons, ready to unleash devastation. But the Dreadnought, with its agile maneuvers and advanced targeting systems, was designed to exploit such formations. The captain issued commands with precision, directing his crew to prepare for the assault. They would not shy away from the confrontation, they would meet it head-on, embodying the very spirit of humanity. As the first volleys erupted, the Dreadnought's cannons roared to life, sending forth a cascade of energy blasts toward the Overlord's ships. Each shot struck true, tearing through enemy hulls with deadly accuracy. The initial barrage was met with chaos, the Overlord's fleet faltering under the relentless assault. Explosions lit up the void as Overlord vessels succumbed to the Dreadnought's might. The sight was intoxicating. The crew felt a surge of adrenaline as they realized their actions were resonating throughout the galaxy. The Overlords retaliated in desperation, launching volleys of their own. Massive energy beams erupted from their ships, illuminating the darkness of space. The Dreadnought's shields flared in response, absorbing the impact of the attacks. The crew braced for the worst but held their ground, refusing to yield. The captain encouraged them, reminding them of their purpose. "For every world they've oppressed, we stand here today," he shouted, his voice echoing through the corridors of the ship. The crew rallied, their resolve strengthening with every word. As the battle escalated, the Dreadnought's strategic superiority became evident. The crew worked in perfect unison, each member executing their duties with unerring precision. They began to employ hit-and-run tactics, flanking the larger Overlord ships and exploiting their weaknesses. With every strike, the Dreadnought carved a path through the Overlord fleet, a relentless force fueled by righteousness and determination. The Overlords, once seen as an unstoppable juggernaut, were now fighting for their very survival. In the midst of the chaos, the Overlord's command structure was unraveling. Reports of catastrophic losses flooded in, panic settling over their ranks. Commanders shouted orders, trying to restore order, but it was too late. The Dreadnought was a force of nature, a tempest of destruction that refused to be quelled. Each explosion, each failing ship, further eroded the Overlord's confidence. They began to realize that their empire was not as invincible as they had once believed. The captain sensed the shift in momentum. He seized the opportunity to press forward, rallying his crew for a final assault. "Now is our moment," he declared, his voice carrying over the din of battle. The crew responded with fervor, their spirits ignited by the possibility of victory. They launched themselves into the fray, focusing their fire on the flagship of the Overlord fleet, a massive ship that had long been the symbol of their dominance. The Dreadnought maneuvered into position, targeting the flagship with unrelenting determination. The captain's tactical decisions were precise, and with each calculated strike, they chipped away at the Overlord's defenses. The flagship returned fire, but its attempts were met with the Dreadnought's advanced shielding. As the battle raged, the captain could see the Overlord flagship's hull weakening, its systems faltering under the relentless barrage. In a final, desperate attempt, the Overlords initiated their last resort, a devastating bioweapon, one they had never intended to unleash. It was a catastrophic measure, one that would result in untold destruction. As they prepared to deploy the weapon, the captain's eyes narrowed. This could not be allowed to happen. He rallied his crew, urging them to focus their fire. "We cannot let them do this. Engage the weapon systems." With a fierce resolve, the Dreadnought unleashed its full firepower, a concentrated barrage aimed directly at the flagship. The Dreadnought's cannons unleashed a brilliant wave of energy that overwhelmed the Overlord ship, piercing through its defenses. The flagship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, a fiery spectacle that lit up the void. The Overlords watched in horror as their symbol of power disintegrated before their eyes. The despair that flooded their ranks was palpable, their final stronghold crumbling before the might of humanity. As the flagship fell, chaos spread through the remaining Overlord ships. The Dreadnought pressed the advantage, cutting through their lines with renewed vigor. The remaining Overlords, once proud and defiant, were now in full retreat. The battle, which had begun with the Overlords as the aggressors, had turned into a rout, with humanity reclaiming the narrative of their struggle. The tide had shifted irreversibly. Across the galaxy, the news of the Dreadnought's victory spread like wildfire. Oppressed species, long subjugated by the Overlords, began to rise, inspired by humanity's resilience and bravery. The spark ignited by the Dreadnought's actions lit a fire of rebellion throughout the cosmos. The Overlords' empire, once thought eternal, was crumbling under the weight of their arrogance. As the final remnants of the Overlord fleet scattered into the void, the crew of the Dreadnought stood triumphant. They had faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious, proving that the spirit of humanity could not be extinguished. The captain surveyed his crew, their faces glowing with pride and disbelief. They had not only defended their ship, they had ignited a movement that would reverberate across the galaxy. The Dreadnought's victory marked a new dawn for humanity. No longer would they be viewed as insignificant, they were now a formidable force in the galaxy, ready to challenge tyranny wherever it arose. The Overlords, in their quest for dominance, had unwittingly forged a powerful alliance of the oppressed. As the crew celebrated their hard-won victory, they knew that their fight was far from over. This was just the beginning. Humanity stood on the precipice of a new era, one where freedom reigned and the voices of the oppressed would rise against their oppressors. The Dreadnought had carved a path toward liberation, and the galaxy would never forget the day that humanity dared to confront the Galactic Overlords. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was ready to claim its place among the stars, standing tall against the forces of oppression, ready to forge a legacy of strength and resilience.